So hi everyone. So this is chapter number 10. We are going to talk about returns and risk. So we are going to do a lot of problems based on that. We'll first understand the concept and then go to chapter 10. But before we do that, I'll share the link of this Google Sheet with you on D12, like on in the chat, so you can access it. So in the chat, I've shared the link of this D12 with you. Okay. So please check if you can access this Google Sheet. So if you can access the Google Sheet, please type yes in the chat so that I know that you can access it. Perfect. So in this class, we are going to talk about returns and risk and calculate returns and calculate risk for different investments, different stocks. So it's very interesting. So let's start with it. So we'll first talk about returns. Okay. So returns are what you're making on your stock investment or how much your money is growing. Okay, that is returns. Return is how much money are you making on your stock investment or how much money you're like how much money is growing. Okay, now this is here. For any stock that you are going to consider, there are two types of return. Expected return, that is the future return that you are going to get on the stock or you expect from the stock. This is called as, in Greek terms, ex ante returns. So when you do CFA exams, when you do your normal exams, like in this course, if you see ex ante return, ex ante means expected returns from the stock. Okay. The second type of return is historical return. Historical return means the return that you have already received. You have bagged it. It's not the future return. It's the past return. The returns that you have already received. It's also called as ex post returns. Okay. It's also called as ex post returns. So let's first look at expected returns, ex ante returns, and then we'll discuss ex post returns. So ex ante returns is the future returns you expect based on the risk of the stock. Future returns you expect based on risk of the stock. How is it calculated? It is calculated as, formula I'm writing down, risk-free rate, that is the treasury rate, the policy rate of Bank of Canada or Federal Reserve, wherever you're looking at. So risk-free rate plus beta of this stock multiplied by the return on market minus risk-free rate. Okay, so once again, expected return is return you're going to get in the future. It is also known as ex ante return, ex anticipated return. It is future return you expect based on your risk, calculated as risk-free rate plus beta of the stock into return on market minus risk-free. This is the first type of return that you can calculate. The second type of return is historical return. Historical return means also known as ex post returns. It is returns you have received in past periods from that investment. Returns that you have received from the past period from that investment. Now, there are two ways to calculate historical returns. So let me move it here so that in the notes it's with you here. So it is average return and compounded annual growth rate. So what is average return? Average return is calculated as, okay, returns. I'll write down I'll move this here. Compounded annual growth rate we'll discuss later. Average return, once again, it's a type of historical return. It's a way of calculating historical return. How do you calculate? You calculate by adding all adding every year's returns divided by number of years you're looking at. It is simply returns in year 1 plus returns in year 2 plus returns in year 3 dot returns in year n divided by n. Returns in year 1, returns in year 2, returns in year 3 dot divided by n. Okay, this is average return, a way to calculate average return. Simply what you're doing, you're finding out on an average how much returns are you getting every year. On an average, how much returns are you getting every year? A big disadvantage of doing average, a simple average, is it does not consider compounding. It does not consider compounding. It doesn't consider that your money is being compounded. It assumes simple returns, right? Which is not the case with most investments. So a type of historical return is average return. It is adding every year's return divided by number of years. It is calculated as returns in year 1 plus returns in year 2 plus the returns in year 3 dot return in year n divided by n. It is nothing but how much returns are you getting every year. It does not consider compounding. Compounded annual growth rate is nothing but formula for that, double bracket 1 plus year 1 return multiplied by 1 plus year 2 return. This will be more clear when we start doing questions. I'm just giving you the concepts right now. 1 plus year 3 dot 1 plus returns in year n to the power 1 by n minus 1. Okay, this is the whole formula. So you take year 1 return, right? 1 plus year 1's return, multiply it with 1 plus year 2. You keep on doing it, and then you divide, like raise it to the power 1 by n, the number of years you are looking at, and you subtract 1 from it. Okay, so what does it grow? What does it show you? CAGR shows you how much, okay, not how much, at what rate is your money growing on an average. It shows you at what rate your money is growing on an average. Okay, it does consider compounding. Okay, CAGR is also known as geometric mean. Mathematically, you're finding geometric mean, not arithmetic mean. Okay, so returns, two ways to do it. Expected, historical, right? Expected return, risk-free rate plus beta of the stock into return on market minus risk-free. Historical return, right? It is ex post, that is returns that you have already received. It can be average returns or geometric mean, that is CAGR. Average is simply take the average, add the returns up, divide by n. CAGR, right, do compounding. Okay, so with this concept we are going to apply it to different questions and we'll find out returns for different stocks. But before we do that, we need certain things. Okay, so we are going to solve a lot of like 3 questions based on this. Apple, Google, and Tesla. I did the work for you and I noted down the returns every year that you have received in Apple, Google, and Tesla. And we are going to calculate returns and risk for these stocks. So first is return calculations. I'll show it for one stock and then we'll do it for others. Okay. Now for returns, especially expected returns, you need certain things. So you need risk-free rate. Okay. Then you need returns on market, expected returns on market, and for each stock you would need beta. So these 2 things are common for every stock. So I'm going to find it out for you. So Fed fund rate right now is 4%. So risk-free rate right now is 4%. Returns on the market expectation is 7%. Okay, the long-term expectation has gone down from 9% to 7% now because of higher interest rate. So using this information, we'll find out, right, expected return for Apple first and then historical return for Apple. So first is expected return. For that, you need beta of Apple. You know how to see beta of Apple, but I'll still show you again. So go to Yahoo Finance. Go to statistics. Beta is 1.32. 1.32 is the beta. So 1.32 is the beta of Apple. So we need 3 information: beta, risk-free rate, and return on market. Based on that, we can find out expected returns of Apple. So it is risk-free rate 4% plus beta of stock 1.32 multiplied by, okay, return on market 7% minus risk-free rate 4%. So we are using this formula: 4% return risk-free rate on Apple plus 1.32, right, beta of the stock, multiplied by 7% return on market minus risk-free rate 4%. So if you find it out, that comes to 7.96. So expected return on Apple is 7. Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you for noticing that the beta was for Amazon. So we don't want Amazon, we want Apple. So beta is 1.25. So I have to change it. Beta is 1.25. I didn't notice that it was Amazon. So change the calculation to, it is 4% plus 1.25 multiplied by returns on market 7% minus risk-free rate. So expected return on Apple next year is 7.75% based on risk of Apple. Okay, so this is one way. Second is historical return. There are 2 ways to do it: average and CAGR. Average and CAGR. So how do you find, right, average? So I'll give you multiple ways to do it. First, based on formula, it is returns in year 1 plus returns in year 2 plus returns in year 3 plus returns in year 4 plus returns in year 5 divided by 5. Okay, so add all the returns and divide it by number of years you are looking at. First way to do it, historical return, right? Average. Add the returns up divided by the observation number. So number of years you are looking at. So average return on Apple in the past 5 years has been 11.80%. Average year returns on Apple in the past 5 years has been 11.80%. Other way to do it, Excel formula average, click average equals to average, select the first cell, drag it down, right? Close the bracket. Select the first cell, drag it down, close the bracket. So the average is 11.80. Average is 11.80. Two ways, whatever you prefer, use it. If you just have your calculator with you, you might have to do it using the formula, add all the returns up, divided by number of years you're looking at. But if you have Excel with you, you can simply use, right, average as the formula. Any questions with historical return, the first type, average? Okay. The next is CAGR. How to find CAGR? First, formula based. So it is 1 plus year 1 return, double bracket open, 1 plus year 1 return multiplied by 1 plus year 2 return multiplied by 1 plus year 3 return multiplied by 1 plus year 4 return multiplied by 1 plus year 5 return. Okay, so 1 plus year 1 return times 1 plus year 2 return times 1 plus year 3 return times 1 plus year 4 return times 1 plus year 5 return. Okay, close the bracket, raise it to the power 1 by 5. Okay, 1 by n, so it is 1 by 5. Okay, and subtract 1 from it, so the whole formula, 1 plus year 1's return times 1 plus year 2 return times 1 plus year 3 return, year 4 return, year 5 return to the power 1 by n, that is how many years you are looking at, 5 years. So 1 by 5 minus 1. So the answer is 11.42%. If you look at it in percentage, 11.42%. Always note, the geometric mean or CAGR will be lower than average returns because it considers compounding. So you do get interest on interest. That's the reason CAGR or geometric mean is lower than arithmetic mean. Okay, other way to do it, let me see if they have geometric mean. Yeah, they have geometric mean. Okay, use geometric mean as a function in Excel. Select the first value, drag it down to the last value. It's not giving the right answer, so it doesn't calculate CAGR. That is what I was like I remembered from the last session. It doesn't calculate CAGR that well. Okay, the only way is to use the formula. So CAGR is 11.42%. Average return is 11.80%, and the expected return on Apple is 7.75%. Any questions? I'll copy the formula for CAGR so that you can refer it for the second question. Okay, any questions? Very important for your quiz 3, very important for your final exam. Okay, so I'll give you time to do the second one, then we'll do it together. But before we do that, let's find beta for Google. That's the only additional information you need. So it is 1.1. Okay, beta is 1.1. Same thing, you have to find these things. Expected return, historical average, and CAGR for Google stock. Now 10 years returns are given. So 10 minutes to do it, and then we'll discuss. So it is 12:25. So we'll discuss at 12:35. Please try and do it. Okay, so we have a lot of answers to work with. So let's try it together. So first things first, how to find expected return. So pay attention if you didn't get it in the first go. So it is risk-free rate 4%. So type in 4% plus beta of the stock 1.1 multiplied by, okay, return on the market 7% minus risk-free rate 4%. So 4% risk-free rate plus beta of the stock 1.1 in this case multiplied by 7% risk-free return on the market minus 4% risk-free rate. So it is 7.30. Then you have to find historical average and CAGR. First, historical average. I'm just going to use Excel formula, but you know how to do it now. Average will be equals to average, select all the returns. Equals to average, select all the returns. Okay, first cell to the last one, press enter. So it is 32.04. CAGR, it's little tricky. So equals to, open the double brackets, it is 1 plus year 1 return multiplied by 1 plus year 2 return multiplied by 1 plus year 3 return multiplied by 1 plus year 4 return multiplied by 1 plus year 5 return multiplied by 1 plus year 6 return multiplied by 1 plus year 7 return multiplied by 1 plus year 8 return multiplied by 1 plus year 9 return multiplied by 1 plus year 10 return. So 1 plus year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, 8, 9, 10. Close the second bracket, raise it to the power 1 by 10, 1 by 10 because 10 observations, right? So it is 1 by 10 and you are adding 1, so subtract 1. Okay, adding 1, so you subtract 1. So 1 plus year 1, year 2, year 3, so on and so forth to the power 1 by 10 minus 1. So that gives you 28%, 28.50% on that stock. So in practical life, in real life, on any stock, you can find out expected return now, right? So whatever expectation is from that stock, you can find that out. You can find out what is the average return the stock has given in the last X number XYZ years, and also you can find out what is the compounded growth your money has received in that stock. So in Google, in the past 10 years, your money is growing every year by 28.5%. That is what CAGR means. Okay. Last one is Tesla. Again, I'll give you time, same format. I'll give you time to do it, and in 10 minutes, we'll discuss. Find it for Tesla. I'll write down the beta of Tesla. Beta of Tesla is 2.13. Beta of Tesla is 2.13. So same thing, find out expected return, average, and CAGR. 10 minutes to do it. We'll discuss in 10 minutes. Okay, so let's check it out. Expected return first. How do we do it? Risk-free rate 4% multiplied by beta of the stock 2.13 multiplied by return on the market 7% minus risk-free rate again 4%. Okay, so 4% risk-free rate, sorry, it should be plus, not multiplied by, plus beta of the stock 2.13 multiplied by 7% risk-free, like return on the market, minus 4% risk-free rate. So 10.39% is the expected return on Tesla. What's the average return of Tesla? Average return of Tesla. Average function in Excel. Select the first one, drag it down, close the bracket, 21.44%. Select the first one, drag it down, 21.44%. Okay, that's a average historical return that Tesla has given in the last 10 years or so. CAGR is 1 plus this, sorry, double bracket, always open two brackets, 1 plus year 1 return into 1 plus year 2 return into 1 plus year 3 return into 1 plus year 4 return into 1 plus year 5 return into 1 plus year 6 return into 1 plus year 7 return into 1 plus year 8 return into 1 plus year 9 return. Okay, times 1 plus year 10, and last one 1 plus year 11. So once again, always check your work. Year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Close the double brackets, raise to the power 1 by 11. 1 by n means 1 by 11 minus 1. So you're absolutely right. The CAGR, compounded annual growth rate, or geometric mean on Tesla has been 19.80%. Questions? Okay, perfect. The next part now. Risk. We considered the returns now. We calculated on various investments what are the returns. Now we will focus our attention to risk. Now there are different ways to look at risk. Risk is nothing but when you allocate money to that investment, what is the possibility that your returns will be different than your expectation? Okay, the definition of risk is like variation from expectation. Variation from expectation, that is risk. There are different measures of risk though. So the first measure is range. Range is nothing but highest return that the stock has given in past minus lowest return it has given in past. Simple. Range is what is the range of returns for that stock? The highest return the stock has given minus lowest return the stock has given. That is range of that stock. Next is variance of that stock. Variance of that stock means from its mean, from its arithmetic mean, right? How much variation does the stock show? From its arithmetic mean, that we will find out what is the variation that the stock shows. Okay, standard deviation is nothing but square root of variance. Okay, and it shows percentage deviation on average the stock shows from mean. So from its expected return, how much does the stock on an average move? Okay, so from its returns on an average, how much does the stock move? That is standard deviation. Variance, like how do we find it out? Square root of variance. We'll see how to calculate variance, but it is nothing but square root of variance. It means deviation that the stock shows, right, on an average from its average return. Confidence interval means we can assign once we have square root, like once we have a standard deviation and once we have mean, right, the average return, then we can calculate based on estimations, right, what would be the returns be. So confidence interval means based on statistic, based on statistic 68% of times we can actually, and let's see it once. Okay, so confidence intervals, I just want to confirm once what are the percentages. Yeah, so almost 68% of times the returns will be in the range of mean minus 1 times standard deviation and mean plus 1 times standard deviation. Okay, then 95% of the time the returns will be mean minus 2 times standard deviation and mean plus 2 times standard deviation. And 100% or 99.99% of the time the returns will be in the range mean minus 3 times standard deviation and mean plus 3 times standard deviation. Okay, so this is confidence intervals. Unless you calculate it, it's very hard to visualize. But what does risk mean? Risk means on an average, right? How much does your stock move from its expectations? Okay, there are various ways to look at it. First one was range, highest return it has given in past minus lowest return it has given in past. Variance, right? Variance is nothing but on an average how much variation does it show from the mean. We'll see how to calculate it. There are steps to do that. Standard deviation, once you have variance, take a square root of it, you get standard deviation. Okay, confidence interval, based on statistics and probabilities, you and once you have standard deviation and average return, that is mean, you can predict that 68% of times the returns will be in this range. Lower value will be mean minus 1 standard deviation and higher value will be mean plus 1 standard deviation. 95% of the time it will be mean minus 2 standard deviation and mean plus 2 times standard deviation, and 99.99% of the time it will be mean minus 3 standard deviation and mean plus 3 standard deviation. So let's apply this risk measures and find it out for our stocks. So I'm going to copy this, move it down, or let's rename a sheet. This was returns. Let's calculate risk. Okay, returns and risk. I'm doing it for Apple, then I'll give you time to find out for Google and Tesla. First one was range. How do you find out range? Find out the highest return, find out the lowest return, and take the difference. Highest return the stock has given 30%, lowest return the stock has given 3%. Okay, so range will be difference of this two, so 30% minus 3%, so the range of this stock is 27%. That's the first way to look at this stock. Maximum it has moved in a year 27%. That's the range. Lowest return you note, highest return you note, take the difference of the two, that gives you range. Next one is variance. To find out variance, there are different steps to it. Step 1, find average. Find mean, we'll call it mean because everywhere you will see mean. Mean is nothing but another name for average. So step number 1, find out average. So average of this stock is 11.80. Step number 1, we find out average. Step number 2, we find out deviations from mean. Step number 2, we find out deviations from mean. It means average minus year 1 return. Okay. Second year average minus year 2 returns. Third year average minus year 3 return. Fourth year average minus year 4 returns, and fifth year average minus year 5 returns. Okay, so difference between the two, okay, gives you deviations from mean. Difference between the two gives you deviation from mean for this year. Difference between the two gives you deviation of mean for this year, this year, this year. So we are taking difference between mean and all other numbers. Okay, so mean minus 8%, mean minus 11, mean minus 3, mean minus 7, mean minus 30. So you get deviations from mean. That is step number 2. Step number 3, take square of deviations. Okay, take a square of deviation. Square means whatever deviations you have got, raise it to the power 2. Raise it to the power 2. Whatever deviations you have got, raise it to the power 2. Okay, so we raised it to the power 2. So 3 point, I'll do it one by one so that you get it. So raise this to the power 2, then raise this to the power 2, raise this to the power 2, raise this to the power 2, raise this to the power 2. Okay, why we do this? We take a square of it to just remove the impact of signs. Positive and negative, we don't want to consider signs. That's why we take a square of it to remove the impact of signs, plus or minus. That is step number 3. Step number 4, we find out variance by using the formula. It is nothing but average deviations divided by n minus 1, average deviations divided by n minus 1. Okay, if you're calculating, there are two types of variance. If you're calculating sample variance and average deviations divided by n, if you are calculating population variance. So what's the difference between sample variance and population variance? If you are given the returns of this stock or that any investment you're looking at since inception, that is, you are given all the returns that the stock has given since its inception, then you use population variance. But if you're given a sample return of that stock, Apple has been existing for more than 20 years, but they only give you returns for 5 years. So you cannot use population variance because first of all, you don't know how long the stock is investing. They haven't mentioned that, right? And second of all, you, even if you find out Apple has been in existence for more than 5 years. So use population variance when all the returns are given. Use sample variance when a subset of returns are given. Okay, so we'll calculate both. Sample variance, take an average of squared deviations divided by n minus 1. N minus 1 is 5 minus 1. Okay, that is your sample variance. Population variance will be, take an average of these numbers, okay, divided by n, that is 5. Okay, so you have population variance and you have sample variance. Most of the times we consider sample variance because you don't know whether all the information is given to you or not, so we go with most of the times sample variance. So this is the way of calculating variance. Variance is not that useful, but we do have to find out standard deviation because standard deviation is very useful. So standard deviation is simply square root of square root function of sample variance. So square root of that is 4.73. This is your step 5, that is calculate standard deviation on the stock. This is step 5, standard deviation calculation on the stock. So once again, step number 1, find out mean. Step number 2, find out deviations from mean. How do you find it out? Mean minus that year's returns. Step number 3, square those deviations up. Okay. Step number 4, find out, right, variance. Focus on sample because you don't know the total information. So sample variance is average deviation. Take average of all these squared deviations. So it should be average squared deviations divided by n minus 1 and average squared deviations divided by n. So take an average of all these numbers divided by n minus 1. So 5 minus 1, and take an average of these squared deviations divided by n. You get variance. Variance is not that useful. We want standard deviation. So we take a square root of it to find standard deviation. For Apple stock, it is 4.73. Now there is a shortcut for that. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. So Excel function for calculating standard deviation directly is stdv dot s standard deviation dot sample. Okay, and select the returns, select all the returns. So see, it's not giving the right information. Okay, just something I'm checking. Oh, that's why. You don't have to take average here, you just have to add it up. I mistakenly put down the wrong formula. The formula is right. You have to add it up. It's average standard deviations. Yeah, so it should give you same answer. So I'll explain once more. And here also it is sum. Okay. Yeah, so where we went wrong is average square deviations you have to find out. That's the name for it. The formula is, how do you find average? Sum, that is add all step 3 deviations and divided by n minus 1. And same way, average square deviation is add all step 3 divided by n. And that's the reason we were going wrong. Okay, so once again, there is a small change in step number 4. When you're calculating variance, it is simply add all this up and divide it by n minus 1, and for population, add all this up and divide by n. Okay, do not take average, because effectively you're taking average in population variance. So don't use average function, just add it up and divide by n. Simple way of cross checking whether you're doing it right or not: when you take square root of sample variance, you get standard deviation, right? How do you check whether you're right? Use the Excel function stdv.s, select all the returns, you should get the same answer. Standard deviation is important. What does it indicate? On an average, the stock moves 10.5% every year. On an average, the stock moves 10.5% every year. The risk is 10.57% for Apple. Questions? So I'll explain once again, then I'll give you time to do it for Tesla. Both methods. So step number one, first is range. Range is simply note down the highest return, note down the lowest return, take a difference of the two for finding out standard deviation. Step number one, find out mean. Mean is nothing but average of these returns. Step number two, find out deviations from mean. That is mean minus this year return, mean minus this year return, so on and so forth. Take a square of that. Take a square of that. So every deviation from the mean, you square it up. Then step number 4, find variance. Use the formula addition of all these divided by n minus 1, right, to find sample. So add all of these up, sum of all of this, okay, divided by n minus 1 means 5 minus 1, that is sample. We never use population, I just wanted to show you. Let's delete that, population is not used. Okay, so we find out sample variation, then take a square root of that to find standard deviation. How do you find standard deviation? Square root of variance, and that is risk of your stock. That is risk of your stock. So this stock has a risk of 10.57%. Okay, do it for Google. I'll copy the returns, paste it in the risk sheet. Same thing. Your question is find out the range for Google and find out standard deviation of Google. So unless you try, you don't understand where you're going wrong. So take time, try and do it, right? And we'll discuss in 10 minutes. Okay, so let's discuss. So we first will find out range on for this Google stock. So how do you find out range? Note down the highest return. So what is the highest return? Highest return Google has ever given is 86.9%. So note down the highest return, 86.96%. Note down the lowest return. Lowest return including negative return. So like if it is negative, negative will be the lowest return, right? So Google's lowest return ever is 5.34% negative. So signs are important. So if you see the number line, so once you cross 0 into the negative range, higher the value of negative returns, lower is your return. So Google has lost 5.34% maximum in a given year. That's the lowest return Google has ever given. So signs make it trickier. Okay, so highest return is 88.96, lowest return is 5.34. Range will be difference of the two, so this minus this. So your range is actually 94.30. Range is actually 94.30. Okay, so you're absolutely right, range is 94.30. Next is step by step solving it. So I'll copy the steps down. Step 1 I forgot. So pay attention, we're going to do step by step. Step number 1, find out mean. How do we find out mean? We can use add everything up and divide by n, or simply use average function in Excel. So I'm using average function to find out mean. So equals to average select the first cell and drag it down. Oh, it didn't say. Sorry for that. Average. Select the first cell, drag it down. That is 32.04 is the average return Google has given. That's the average. Okay. So we'll highlight it because we'll use average. Deviations from average. How do you find it out? So it is average minus that year's return, then average minus that year's return, average minus that year's return, average. So I am not going to do it for everything, so I'm making it constant, minus that year's return, and I'll drag it down. So these are deviations from mean. How do you find it out? Average whatever you have found out minus that year's return. Okay, gives you deviations from mean. Step number 3, you square it up. So this to the power 2, square it up, square the deviations up. Okay, so how do you square it up? Like deviation from the mean to the power 2, to the power 2. Now variance, how do you find variance? We are just going to find out like sample variance. So it is sum of squared deviations, divided by n minus 1. So it is n minus 1. So sum of squared deviations divided by n minus 1 in bracket. Sum of squared standard deviations divided by n minus 1, that is 10 minus 1, 9. So variance is 0.11. We are not interested in variance. We are interested in standard deviation sample. How do you find standard deviation sample? Take a square root of variance. Take a square root of variance. So 33% is the average risk. 33.2% is the average risk that Google exhibits. Okay. If you want to cross check it, you can use the formula stdv.s, standard deviation sample. Select the first column, the return column, select all the returns. It should give you the same answer, 33.27. That's when you know that you are doing it right. Any questions? Okay, so remaining one is Tesla, 11 years in total. I'll copy this, paste it here. This is numbers. Okay, this is Tesla. Let's move it down a bit. So same thing, give you 10 minutes to do it and then we'll discuss. So try and do it. Post your answers in the chat. Okay, so let's do this last one and I will let you go. So first is range. So note down the highest return, note down the lowest return and take the difference. So highest return Tesla has ever given, 55%. So let's highlight that, 55.26%. Lowest return Tesla has ever given. Lowest return Tesla has ever given. It has given negative returns, so negative 8.43. Okay. Now take a difference. It should be 4.3, not 4.2. So take a difference between these two. 63.69% is the range. You are absolutely right. 63.69% is the range. Okay. Next one. Find mean, standard deviation, and all of that. So I'll copy these steps. We are trying to find out okay. So step number 1, find out the mean. Step number 2, find deviations from mean, square it up, find out variance, and then we'll find out standard deviation. So first is mean. How do you find mean? Take the average of all the returns, 11-year returns. 21.44% is the mean. I'm highlighting the mean because we are going to use that. Deviation from the mean, it is, I'll move this up. Okay, deviation from the mean minus, so mean, I'll make it constant, minus that year's return, that is deviations from the mean. I will drag it down. So mean minus that year return, mean minus this year's return, mean minus this, so on and so forth. You get deviations from mean. Okay, next is square the deviations up. So whatever answers you got, you square it up. So you square the deviations up, square it 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 up, and square it up. So you square the deviations up. That is step number 3. Then find out variance. Variance is simply addition of all these squared deviations divided by n minus 1. So this n minus 1 in bracket. So variance once again is addition of all square deviations, add all the square deviations up, divided by n minus 1. Okay, so 11 minus 1. So that is variance. Now you can find out standard deviations. So standard deviation is simply square root of variance. Standard deviation is simply square root of variance. So you are absolutely right. The answer is 20.71. Just to check, just to confirm, we will use standard deviation dot s function and use returns. Select all the returns. The answer should be same. 20.71. So standard deviation of Tesla, the risk of Tesla is 20.71 based on the information given here. Any questions? Any questions? So that's it for today. So in the next class, we'll discuss confidence intervals. We'll talk about confidence intervals. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you everyone for attending. Have a great weekend ahead of you. We'll see each other in the next class. Happy weekend.
Harry,
Yes?
I was wondering if quickly you could show me where those recordings are. I just can't find them.
Oh, you can't? So
No.
usually I put it financial model. Oh, 21st October. I haven't put it then. I will put it right away. I must have
Okay, thank
forgotten.
you very
Yeah,
much.
I will do it. Sorry about that.
No worries. Thank you. Have a good
Yeah.
weekend.
Have a good weekend. Bye bye.